that.
No, it's just a headshot anyway. How do men benefit from having a close group of male friends?
How do men benefit? Well, years ago I did a focus survey of men's health, the determinants of men's health, and what was expected to come out of that was men were smoking too much and eating too much and drinking too much. That's what we expected them to see as the determinants of their own health. But that wasn't the results of the survey. The survey showed out that relationships were the main determinant of men's health. After that came communication, and after that came the education of men, that there was not much around. You know, any doctor surgery, it's all women's health, and nothing about men's health. So the relationships are the main cause of ill health in men. And you know, relationships mean everything. They're relationships with themselves, relationships with the men they work with, their friends, as well as their families and their kids. The main problem is the stereotype of men having to be tough and reliable and not sissy. And as a result of that, men have closed down. They don't show when they're scared or when they're sad. It's okay for men to show that they're angry. And anger is the result, or is the result of something not being fair. And that could be sad or scared. You know, somebody's left them, something's gone wrong, this leads to hurt, which is the sad part. And instead of looking at what they need to stop their sadness or to ease their sadness, they immediately go to anger, which has the opposite effect, of course. That increases the bad outcomes in relationships, in everything. And the same with scared. Instead of tackling the problems as they need to, they get angry, and no problems are solved. It's part of the blame mentality. Blame everybody else for things going wrong. So the first port of call is to find someone to blame for something going wrong. If men had better relationships with each other, that would be the start. We're not really truthful with one another, even best friends. They hide a lot from each other. They hide their emotions from each other instead of bringing them out and dealing with them and sharing them, because all men have similar problems, similar emotions, where we've got the same emotional capacity as females. But instead of, and women talk about them within themselves. You hear a bunch of women talking, they're talking emotionally and about their emotions and outing them, letting them out of the boiler. Because what men do is they stuff it down into the boiler until they blow. Either they lose their temper, which is the most common one, but the long-term one is that it affects their health. Our body reacts to our emotions. So men need to be closer with one another, to be able to talk about their failings, with an understanding that the bloke they're talking to has probably had the same failings. And instead of us all being, you know, tough and macho and nothing happens to me and I can handle everything, if they talked about them and found and normalised them, there'd be a group and a collective healing of those problems. When a man gets sick, it's usually his woman who tells him to go to the doctor, and that man's been, you know, talking with his mates in the pub for months and months and months carrying an illness or a hurt or a pain or something, and not sharing it with each other, not giving their mate a chance to say, well, do you reckon you ought to go see a doctor? That just doesn't happen. So the first step, I think, is men talking with each other on a real level. Yeah, and that's got to be backed up too by the women. There's the stereotype among women too that men have got to be tough and not complain and work odd hours and long hours and in all sorts of weather and not complain about it. Just keep bringing home the pay packet. And when he takes some relief, what he believes is relief, which might be going down to the pub or going and playing golf or going to sport, the woman takes this as being left out, and so it doesn't aid that possibility of men getting together and talking.
I've got to fix this up for the next one. That's much better.
Now you've got my chin.
Men believe they have to be seen as masculine or tough. Do men see having a close male friend as weak?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. The number of men, I counsel mainly men, and the first response I get from a bloke when I say, do you talk this over with your mate, is no. They're seen as weak, they feel weak. We're very competitive. We've got to feel that we're bigger, better, stronger than our mates, or at least on an equal footing. And this is the stopper. This is where we stop going that extra step to talking. I have a men's group here every Monday night, and there's about 8 of us. Sometimes it gets up to about 12. Some of the men are not able to come every Monday night because they have access to their kids on that night. So the population floats a little bit, but basically it's the same 12. And the trust has been built up in that group. There are several rules about confidentiality, that we don't talk about what happens in this room anywhere else. We can talk about our own stuff with other people, but not name names about anybody else. And so it creates a safety and a respect. You get to see how some blokes are handling their difficulties. They've come to that point where they're able to talk about what's happening with the missus, or the difficulties at work with a difficult boss, or one of their kids is sick, or handling the finances, meeting the mortgage, etc., all those sorts of things. And it always relates to other men in the group. Other men in the group are able to see at some stage they've been in the same position or similar, and so there's an understanding builds up. That it takes the competition out of it. It takes out that you're a weak bugger. Pull yourself together. One of the usual responses is, oh well, come down the pub, mate, we'll have a few beers. And the subject's not brought up. They have a few beers, but the subject's not brought up and they don't talk about it. Yeah. So we're afraid of being weak. We all live in fear. All live in fear.
How can this view be changed and male closeness encouraged?
Well, as I say, one of the main things is men's groups. We have, and you've been to a couple of them, Tasman's gatherings every year, where a theme is created for the long weekend, and various aspects of that theme are put across in the big group, and then they break into smaller groups, which we call affinity groups, and with a trained facilitator to bring those things out and give those men a chance to talk about them. And it's a different environment. It's a different environment altogether. There's no women there. It's there's a lot of focus put on honesty and openness, and to be clear about what you're saying. There's not enough. It's not good enough to say this has happened to me. It's not good enough. We've got to go. Okay, so no, I don't know. What does it really mean to you? How are you reacting to that? What's happening to your emotions in that? Yeah. And very quickly, like it happens every year. We've had 15 of them, 15 years we're doing them, and every year, every man, well, there's a few exceptions, respond to that and open up, and come away from that long weekend with a whole different perspective, and are more likely to talk to their mates outside the gathering on that same level. They're not. They've lost their fear of appearing weak or unable to handle things.
Yeah. Do you think women could play a role, or what role women could play in helping men open up more?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as I was saying before, a lot of women have that stereotype where the man has got to be strong and self-reliant, and for her to lean on. But relationships have changed now. Relationships are. We've worked out that inequality doesn't work. The man, the head of the house, and everyone else subservient to him. It just never worked. Our parents grew up that way, the attached relationship, based on roles and rules. What the woman should do, what the man should do. But it's different these days. Lots of women are earning more than their men. Lots of women are more intelligent, if I could say that, or more educated than their men.
Yeah.
That they have valuable stuff to add, and to encourage their men to open up and to talk with their mates. A woman is not always the best person for a man to talk to.
Yeah, yeah.
A woman's got their female look at it, and other males have got, and talking with other males brings out that other aspect that we're all craving, really. Men are craving. We're alone, we're isolated.
Yeah.
We work hard, and we don't whinge about it. For instance.
You talk about the different, the way the relationships in the family and stuff has changed. The male has always been seen as the protector and the provider, though. Do you think that's always been that way, and will it always be that way?
It has always been that way.
Yes.
But that's what I say. That is changing. That is changing a lot. And women have been able to change. The women's movement into working in men's jobs, working in offices, working their way up the executive ladders, and proving that they can do it very well.
Yeah. Men
haven't reciprocated. They haven't taken a leaf out of their book and seen that they can do the same things. And again, that's changed a lot. There's more stay-at-home dads now that stay home and look after the kids, or do part-time jobs. And they both do part-time jobs, and so they do part-time housework, kids, managing the nest, and that works very successfully.
Yeah. Do you believe Australians need to applaud the likes of Kevin Rudd for his emotional resignation speech?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob Hawke did the same thing, didn't he?
I think he may have, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he talked about his kids and drugs and stuff. that was being real.
Mm.
And that was a good example of a man being real. Lots of women could talk about their husbands crying or breaking down and being real, but they don't.
Mm.
That's part of protect the male, being the protector and being strong. And I think those examples of Rudd and Hawke are good. They're good examples. They're encouraging men that despite being the premier or the country, that they're still real.
Mm.
They're still able to have that strong side, have the compassionate side, have the empathic side, and to be nurturers. That they don't have to be the warrior and only the warrior.
Mm.
Yeah, so I thought that was a great move forward.
Yeah.
And I think that he was applauded.
Mm.
Generally, he was applauded. There was very little put down about either of those men doing that. Yeah, and there was a bit of sincerity too.
Yeah.
That came through. Mm.
Mm.
So the point I'm getting to is that if men can step into themselves, into their real selves, and be real with other men, which means that they're being real with themselves as well, will aid their health.
Yeah.
It takes the stress. There's a rough continuum, and it goes stress, depression, anxiety, suicide.
Mm.
In Smithson we've had our share of suicide.
Yeah. Yeah.
And instead of looking at it at the first stage, at the stress stage, where the man comes home from work and she says, "What sort of a day do you have, darling?" "Oh yeah, all right."
Mm.
And he's had a bastard of a day. And instead of unloading that, and the excuse I get from men why they don't do that, "I don't want to burden her with all my troubles."
Mm.
It's not burdening anybody, because the woman's not expected, or anybody's not expected to do anything about it.
Yeah.
What it is just downloading the emotions, downloading the stress.
Mm.
All the other person has to do, whether it be a wife or a mate, is just to understand how it is to be in that position.
Yeah.
That's all they have to do. And in that one motion, that man feels like he's not alone. Somebody understands him.
Yeah.
If that doesn't happen, he goes into depression. Slowly but surely goes into depression. And the biggest pharmaceutical item on our shelves in the chemist today is antidepressants.
Mm.
Everyone's on them. Well, not everyone, but and it's trying to deal with it in a medical way instead of dealing with it naturally in the tribe working together.
Mm.
In the old tribes, they worked together. They worked as a community. We work as a community. I'm talking about Smithton in a big way, like something, and dreadful things have happened in Smithton. Car accidents and house fires and planes crashing and motorbike accidents and farm accidents. And in those times, the community pulls together. That's a show of understanding and compassion and empathy. We just got to spread that a little bit further, because that was an extreme example of a terrible thing happening. But we've got to filter it right down to the little things that are happening, the little things that build up. Like if you're working in a place where one bloke is giving you a hard time, and that goes on and on and on, that builds up.
Yeah.
It builds up, that bloke starts to believe that what the others are saying about him, or the other bloke is saying about him, is true. It's there's that lack of respect, and respect is what it's all about. If somebody tells you that they're having a hard time and they couldn't sleep, or they're crying themselves to sleep, and their mate laughs at them, that's the worst thing in the world to happen. But if he says, yeah, I've been through the same thing, mate, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's how we are, and that's all there is to it. So relationships are the key to men's good health. Okay. There was just one more thing that I wanted to add, and that was about, we've been talking about men talking with men, but one of the big things that's missing is men talking with their boys, men sharing with their sons their own problems and possibly how they're handling them, how they worked it out, how they felt, and this makes it okay for the boy, instead of the boy feeling like he hasn't got any backing, anything behind him. What happens then is that boys go to the gang mentality, and we've got that in Smithton too, where all the boys hang out together and get up to strife. It's the risk-taking behaviour. It's again showing how tough we are and how we can be stronger than the next bloke or more daring than the next bloke. If fathers are able to talk to their sons about their own downfalls and how they handled them, or their upsides as well, this brings the father and son closer together, and the son is more likely to be able to talk to dad, to get that guide, and dad is the role model on how to be a male. And if dad doesn't do that job, the boy doesn't know where he is, and so he'll play up instead. So many kids just don't have, they have dads, but they're absent dads. They're there, they're in the house, they say dad is grumpy, tired from work, or drunk, and don't get that connection, that real heart and soul connection with their dad about how to be a male. And this is one of our one of our big problems in our world today, that passing on of how to be a nurturing male, how to be an understanding male, how to be concerned about other people's feelings and other people's property. So I just wanted to add that little bit. Thanks.